I overheard my cheating future wife laughing with her friends, saying she landed a rich simp. So, I showed her what this rich simp can actually do. We met in college and remained just casual acquaintances at the time. We both took a couple of the same classes and hung out a few times, stayed in contact but never too terribly close. We both graduated, and a few years later we reconnected after randomly running into each other after we unknowingly both moved to the same city. It was around that time that my career really took off. A few senior engineers from my company recruited me for a startup they had been working on. We got a few big clients and venture capitalist funding pretty early on, so within a few years the money really started to roll in. She and I started dating, and honestly up until now I've been nothing but happy. Things were going great, and I felt like I was really close to her. I've been nothing but doting and appreciative of her. This all began to shift last week when I overheard her talking to her friends about how she views me. I had planned to work later than usual, but came home early with a stomachache and went to lie on the bed. I must have fallen asleep for about 2 hours, but when I woke up I could hear her in the living room with some of her friends while they were drinking. The conversation was pretty casual until they started talking about the wedding and our relationship in general. Through the laughter, she went on to describe how she had landed herself the perfect rich simp, how she basically controlled me, and how I would give her the life she always wanted. I was just a tool for her to use. Her friends thought it was hysterical and egged her on. I know she was drinking, and I know maybe she was joking, but for me the trust is gone. I don't feel like I can still marry her when I've heard in her own words that she sees me this way. When she later went to the bedroom, she seemed surprised to see me, but she also assumed I'd been asleep. I haven't confronted her yet, and I'm just dreading canceling the wedding, which is scheduled for next April. Update 1. Sorry, it took me a couple of weeks to post an update, but it's been really hectic. I confronted her a couple of days after my initial post. I wanted to see if she would be honest, if there was even a chance of working this out, so I initially didn't allow her to know I personally overheard her. I told her I heard a rumor that she had been talking about me that way. She pressed me for a name, but after I refused to give her one, she flat out told me repeatedly that I had been lied to, that she would never talk about me that way. I then told her I personally overheard her, then her entire demeanor changed. I think she hadn't considered that I'd been awake when she had her friends over, or that this was such a common topic of conversation that she didn't know exactly which specific conversation I had heard rumors of. I told her I was calling off the wedding, then she started crying, and I genuinely felt bad, but at the same time I can't really trust her anymore. She left and I have no idea where she went, but I got a few calls from her friends later that night and the next morning. They were the same friends I overheard earlier, so I just never answered. Her dad randomly showed up that afternoon and seemed surprised at what I said. She hadn't given him a detailed reason for why I was calling off the wedding, just that she had lost my trust. She didn't have much to say after I told them, but said I should try to work things out. She came back the next day, and I still have no idea where she went, nor do I really care. I was blunt and told her she would need to find a new place somewhat soon. Since then I've been spending as little time as possible at home, and she seems to be gradually removing some of her smaller personal items. It's a mess, and she keeps trying to salvage things, and when that fails the crying starts. I'm glad I found out sooner rather than later. Alright, final update. My ex and one of her male friends showed up with a U-Haul to get the last first of the weekend after my last post. I didn't trust their chemistry together, but I also didn't really care. I didn't even bother to learn if she has a new lease or if she was staying with him. She thankfully left my ring behind, but I don't know what to even do with it. It cost me $15,000 retail, but the resale looks like a fraction of the original cost. I also have a lot of work to do to recoup my deposits for the venue, caterer, and planner. Her mom called me the night after she left, but I didn't answer. I honestly didn't want to hear it. I've always had a great relationship with her, but she sounds so much like her daughter that I didn't know if I could take that conversation. I've had a really difficult time emotionally over the last month and a half dealing with this. I've always been a casual drinker, but lately I've been avoiding going home and drinking with old friends far more constantly to avoid having to deal with the fallout. I know it's not healthy, but it's all I could do to not fall apart completely. Some of that spilled over into my work, and I think the other founders noticed. I lead a small DevOps team and do a ton of technical work myself. Because of this, my mistakes are really easy to notice since they largely manifest in infrastructure breakage, CI/CD outages, and downtime in key applications. I don't know how exactly they learned what happened, but after I mentioned I wouldn't be going to see family during Thanksgiving, the CTO sent me a text asking me if I was home, then showed up with the CEO 30 minutes later the night before Thanksgiving. The CTO had apparently learned what happened a few days before, and he, along with his wife, had spent most of the day basically making me a feast. It was incredible. Beef bourguignon, brochette potato salad, lasagna, devil's eggs, duck roast to say the least. The CEO brought an incredibly expensive bottle of whiskey and some high-end Japanese A5 steaks. I was brought to tears. I had never been shown this much love and appreciation in my entire life. I will never forget it. We basically just drank whiskey, ate food, and talked for hours. They gave me the rest of the year off and asked me to just make sure I delegated the most time-sensitive work. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do, but I'm thinking of vacationing in Ireland for a few weeks. Never mind. I have frozen leftover for weeks. Alright, second cheating story. My wife of 20 years asked for a hall pass to sleep with someone else. But then I caught her on a restaurant cheating with him. So I sent his wife roses with a restaurant name. My wife and I have been together for 20 years. We met in our freshman year of high school, and we have been together ever since. She and I both lost our virginity to one another. We went to prom together, and we even went to the same college after graduation. We got married right after we graduated from college, and we settled down to start our life together. Having a family was always something we were looking forward to. So once we had good jobs, we decided to start. Fast forward about 11 years, and we have 2 kids, we own our own home, and we are on a fast track to retiring early so we can travel and do all of the things we never had the chance to. I thought that we were living the dream life. All of that came crashing down when my sister-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was my wife's best friend, and she took it very hard. She was with her every step of the way while she was fighting as best as she could. But in the end, she passed away. It was a huge blow to the entire family, myself included. It's such a cliche, but she was just a beam of light in the world. My wife took it harder than anyone else. My sister-in-law was who my wife would go to when she needed to talk about anything. They would go shopping together, and they knew everything about each other. I was there for my wife while she grieved the loss, and I helped her get over the worst time of her life. After about 6 months of mourning, my wife started to get back to herself. She had all of my sister-in-law's journals and her notebooks, and she read through all of them while she was grieving. I couldn't even begin to process the types of emotions she must have been feeling, so I just tried to be supportive and lend an ear when she needed it. One thing that got to my wife was feeling like she hadn't done anything with her life. Her sister was taken way too soon, and through the journal entries, my wife realized that her sister felt like she didn't get to do enough in her life. I guess when my wife read all of that, she thought that her sister would have wanted her to do the opposite. She told me that she had been inspired to start living. She wanted to travel, go skydiving, and just enjoy the life that she had while she had it. I wholeheartedly agreed with it. That's why I've been working 60 hours a week since I graduated college, so we could try to retire early. Over the next few weeks, she started doing more things. For example, she started taking pottery classes because she'd always been interested in it. She had been teaching herself how to rock climb because she wanted to free climb, and she even scheduled a bungee jumping excursion for her and our son. She seemed to be leaning into this new lifestyle. I didn't think anything of it. I was happy for her because she was recovering from the loss of her sister. One night, after she came home from the climbing gym, she was acting off. Before that, she had been very upbeat and excited about everything while she took on this new lease on life. After dinner, when the kids were in their rooms, she pulled me out to the patio where we shared a couple of glasses of wine and looked at the stars. Toward the end of our conversation, she brought up the possibility of both of us having a hall pass. For those of you that don't know, a hall pass and a committed, monogamous relationship is a one-time opportunity for both of the partners to have sex with someone outside of the relationship. I was completely shocked by what she had suggested. It felt like it came out of nowhere, so I asked her about why she was bringing it up. She assured me that she loved me, but she felt like she might have been missing out on a part of her life because she had only ever been with me. She tried to say it in a way where I wouldn't be hurt, but it was impossible not to feel horrible when she said that. I told her that I wasn't supportive of the idea. She and I had been married for 20 years, and I didn't understand why it was a problem all of a sudden. I didn't want to sleep with anyone else, and I wasn't okay with her sleeping with anyone else. We were about to go back inside, but I stopped and I asked her if there was someone she had been interested in sleeping with. She was hesitant to tell me the truth, but after a few moments, she told me that there was another person who went to the climbing gym that she was attracted to. She told me that he had always been flirty, and recently he asked her out for drinks. I was assured that she said no, and that she would tell him that she was married. But I still went to bed that night with a sour taste in my mouth. It took a few days for me to come to terms with what she had suggested. I was unbelievably hurt by it, but after some time, I forgave her and we carried on as if the conversation never happened. After a week or so, she told me that the climbing gym offered a class to start working outdoors and that she wanted to sign up for it. One Saturday, she went out early in the morning with the class. At least, that's what I thought was happening. Our daughter had been entering those years where she started lying to us about where she was going so she could go to parties and hang out with friends we didn't approve of. So, we told her to leave her location on Snapchat maps so we could verify she was where she said. That same afternoon, our daughter was supposedly going over to a friend's house, so I checked the maps to make sure she wasn't lying. Everything was good on our daughter's end, but I noticed that my wife's avatar was in the heart of the city. I was a little confused because I had been told that she was going to a park about 30 minutes outside of the city. I zoomed in on the location and saw that she was at a bar. I tried to rationalize it like she was just hanging out with some of the other people from the climbing gym after they got back from their climb. But I had a sinking feeling in my gut that I couldn't ignore. I remembered what she had said about the guy from her climbing gym, asking her to go out for drinks. I didn't think it was that far of a stretch to wonder if she was there with him. I was home alone in the bar that she was at only happened to be about a 15-minute walk from the house. So I grabbed the dog and we took a walk. I kept my eyes on the map every so often just to make sure she was still there and she wasn't leaving. When I got to the bar, I looked in through the windows and I saw my wife sitting at a table with a man. They were both leaning close together and smiling from ear to ear as they chatted. The man reached across the table and grabbed my wife's hand, and my wife let him. Of course, hand-holding isn't necessarily cheating, but it was an indication that maybe there was something more going on. I went home before my wife saw me there, and I waited for her to get back. The entire time I waited, I didn't know if I was going to confront her about her try to dig around on my own. She came home, and before she even said anything to me, she went right to the shower. I tried to grab her to have a conversation, but she just told me that she was gross and sweaty from climbing. That solidified in my head that something happened while she was with that man. She had dropped her gym bag down near our bed, and I noticed that her phone was still inside. I pulled it out and looked through it to see if I could find any information about who that man was. I searched the name of the bar in her text messages, and I found a chat between her and an unsafe number. I scrolled back to the beginning of the conversation, which happened to be about a week before she asked me about the hall pass. I skimmed through the rest of the messages, looking for keywords that would indicate an affair. Eventually, I found a few exchanged pictures and some explicit messages. Then I saw the plans for them to get together at the bar. They even came up with a lie to tell me and his partner together. I had no idea who that guy was, but I was able to find out by looking through the climbing gym social media. They had posted a few pictures with some of the clients, and he was clearly in one. He was tagged in it and everything. I did some digging and found out that he was married with a newborn baby. I was disgusted by what I saw. Hurt doesn't even begin to describe the pain that I felt. I had been with my wife for 20 years, and she was willing to throw all of that away because she wanted to sleep with another man. I was furious, and I was so disgusted by the foul actions both of them had done. At the end of their message chain, with no context, was the name of a restaurant with a date and time. A week had passed since I discovered my wife was cheating on me, and I had come up with a plan to catch her in the act. While I was thinking about it, I realized that the wife of her affair partner deserved to know as well. When the day of the meeting was supposed to take place, I sent his partner's wife a dozen roses with the information for the restaurant on the card. I hoped that it would be a way to trick her into thinking he had a surprise plan for her. I waited outside of the restaurant, and I saw her head toward it. I followed her inside, and we both noticed our partners holding hands at the same time. She rushed right over to him and started yelling at him in front of everyone. My wife was shocked to see me, but she jumped up and tried to tell me that it wasn't what it looked like. Then I asked her to explain the text messages, and she went silent. I told her that I would be ending everything between us and that she could expect to see me in court. We spent the next 8 months in a divorce battle over what happened. The biggest issue that we had was custody. We both wanted primary custody of our children, but in the end, we were given joint custody. I was able to keep the house, and she was entitled to no spousal payment from me. Her affair partner was also divorced, and he was forced to pay child support and alimony to his ex. My ex and I only recently finished the divorce proceedings, and we're finally done with each other. I honestly don't know what to do from here. I had only been with one woman, and she stabbed me in the back, and I'm not sure how to move forward.